Hey everyone, yeah, it's Saturday. It's about 2:45. I gotta be at work in a few hours anyway, but that's evening, so it's only a few out 4.5 hour work day, so that's pretty cool. Um, but yeah, kind of consider this a bit of a preview of what's to come in about 2 weeks. Yeah, not next Saturday. I'll be working next Saturday because that's the day before Easter. But consider it a preview of 2 Saturdays from now. Yeah. Because this is basically what it's going to be like. With that said, though, let's talk about something. I've talked about this many times. In fact, I finally uploaded the first part of a two-part video that I did. Basically, if you're commissioned, which was entitled, "If you're commissioned to do a project, shouldn't you do it?" Which you can find here on my channel. But another thing I want to talk about, and I've talked about this various times, and I guess with this new camera, I want to kind of talk about it again in more detail, or at least try to. Everybody know, if you don't know about this website called TVtropes, which is TV tropes, which is TVTROPES. It's got a website. Basically, it's the TVtropes.com, and it talks about any trope, as it calls it, that you could find in movies, books, comics, and mostly television, and any other media, like fan fiction even, commercials, live action, you name it. But usually sometimes a majority of the categories that get filled up with these tropes at times are either science fiction, but most of the time from what I've seen are anime and Western animation categories. And the reason I say that is because of these reasons. Western animation and anime always seem to be unlimited in what they can do. They're unlimited on what they could bring to the screen, whether it's the small television screen or the theatrical screen. They're unlimited in what they can do. So, let's take a look at some of these tropes, mostly some that I've talked about before. Now, one thing I've noticed with a certain fandom, if you will, here in the Western portion of the world, and as well as probably around the world, is something called the visage, or visage, VISAGE. Visage, if you will. Basically, it's another term for imprint. Basically, when something presses up against something else and you see an imprint of it. Like, let's say you go to a fun house at a carnival, and one of these fun houses allows you to press your hands against some kind of rubber or plastic or whatever, and allows you to press your face up against it, or press your hand up against it. And then on the other side, let's say maybe through a camera or a mirror, you can see on the other side an imprint of your hand on the other side of that wall, or that whatever that material. And when you do it with your face, you see the same thing. But why is that? But here's the thing, why is the imprinting trope, which I'm surprised TV Tropes doesn't have a category for, why is it so popular? I was just checking something. But why is it so popular? Well, I asked somebody this over at Echo's Portal one time. I private messaged them. And they said, basically in their own terms, the reason that an imprint is so popular is due to the fact that people get fascinated by seeing the shape of the individual on the outside of something that they're looking at. So let's say, not to get, mature, not to get really mature or anything, But let's take these so-called vac beds, if you will. Now again, I'm not trying to get very mature or anything, but let's take these for example. Now we know there's a certain group of people, very adult-oriented people, if you know what I mean, they use these at times. And sometimes people will use them for fun. I mean, there are places, believe it or not, that are non-risky, or non-risque, if you know what I mean, that have these for people to try out for fun. So let's take a look at these vac beds, if you will. These vac beds allow people to go into them, full body and all most of the time, and they do have air holes and stuff apparently, or even if they don't, they have some kind of way of letting you breathe, right? So let's take a look at these. Basically, these people, when they go into these vac beds, they will lay back into whatever position they desire or they're asked to go into. But mostly sometimes if it's, free to the public, kind of non-risky kind of deal, but mainly for adults, and maybe some late teens or whatever, that what they do is they lay back and they let the machine press down on them, and on the outside, all you see is an imprint of the body. That's it. So, again, when this person answered this question for me, they basically, like I said, indicated that something like that, like I said with the vac beds, seeing the shape of a person on the outside fascinates them. Because usually, with another group of, because sometimes with this certain fandom, this certain group of fans, if you will, we'll call them the V fans. When they would kind of go in that direction, according to the person that I talked to, they said that the reason they do the imprints, if you will, is because it's like I said, it's not only fascinating to people, but it's a lot more interesting than just seeing a round shape after the person is taken in, if you know what I mean, or after the person kind of experiments a little bit. They basically a rounded out shape or just a regular shape is not so interesting or intriguing as, let's say, seeing somebody's whole body or something like that, or at least a part of the body, maybe the face sticking out, that the imprinting of these individuals, like I said, is more fascinating to the human eye than just a regular shape after they do their experimenting or they're taken within, if you know what I mean. And the reason I bring this up is because I've noticed that sometimes in anime and in Western animation, and sometimes in live action, you'll get these kind of scenarios. You'll get at times, very rarely though, at times you'll get situations where the characters themselves, like sometimes maybe a main character or whatever, will end up in a situation where basically they'll end up in a situation to where the next thing you see is nothing but an imprint of them on the outside basically you'll see nothing more than an imprint of them from the outside of something that you're looking at. And again, we've seen this in animation, we've seen it in Western animation, we've seen this in anime, and even, like I said, live action through some of the technology we have nowadays, we've seen it, and in comic books we've seen it too. And again, I can't really tell you which animes or Western animations or live action movies or shows that have had this, but I know they've been there, I've seen them. And maybe some of you guys can name those as well. But that's always what's made it interesting, sometimes, is when you see that. And sometimes the imprinting of somebody uh, when they are contained within something or someone, depending on the situation, sometimes all you see is the face, the visage, if you will. And that at times will lead imprinting into almost being in the same category as something called absorption. Now, like I said in that two-part video, I talked about the whole commission deal. The situation, the commission deal, is, in certain stories, whether they're animated stories, anime stories, live action, whatever, there have been times that when a character, and it seems to me, and I'm not trying to be offensive here, not trying to be offensive, but it seems to me that sometimes a character, at times mostly female, and again, not trying to be offensive, I'm not trying to be offensive, okay? When they get taken into something, or even taken into somebody, that the next thing you see of them is their face on the outside of whatever they've been taken into, or whoever has taken them in, basically absorbed them. You see nothing but their face. And sometimes their face won't say anything. Their face will just be there as a representation of saying, hey, I've absorbed this person now, and they're a part of me, and they're now a part of me until at least you can try to defeat me. Or something like that. And like I said, anime has done this a lot. Western animation, I know, has done it, and so has live action and stuff. But again, I can't really name of any. Well, there was one. There was a Doctor Who episode, I believe, where one of the females wasn't a main character, but she was kind of a love interest. Gets absorbed by this guy. You see nothing but her face on the outside of this guy now in his monster form. And that after this guy is defeated, yeah, she's freed, but she's now only a face, and she's a face on a brick. So, whatever. And, but yeah, that has been, and again, that's what it kind of tells me, and again, by mentioning that kind of shows me and tells me, and like I said, not being offensive or anything, that it seems that the female has always been the one that's ended up in these kind of situations. I don't know why, but they just have. And then, of course, you get to what is, they just have. And sometimes it's basically, like I said, to represent that, hey, this person's a part of me now, and I have their power or their abilities, or something. But these things are among some of the most popular tropes. Another popular trope when it comes to animation, anime, Western animation, or even fan art of, comic books or whatever, is the merging fusion kind of deal. And the merging fusion, if you will, is a very popular trope because of the fact that it takes the concept of two characters and putting them together as one. Now, it kind of goes in the same category as absorption almost, but there's a difference. The merging fusion, if you will, as some people call it, whether it's fusion or merging, whatever, basically, it's not about absorbing somebody and you absorb the power and, you got something that represents that they're inside of you now, like the face, looking basically as an imprint on the outside of your body. But you also see other things that happen, like sometimes they'll take on the traits of that person, like the coloring of the hair will be a blend of both hair colorings of the individual. Like the eye coloring, one eye will be one color, the other will be another color. The facial structure might change a little bit, the body proportions might change. Things like that. The minds might become one and they'll end up creating a new name out of themselves, even for a temporary time. So a lot of these things in the fusion merging makes it a very popular trope alongside the imprinting and absorption tropes that you see in these same categories as well. Now you go to places like DeviantArt, and you see a lot of this fusion merging stuff. Believe me, Go to someone called Doodly Dude. That's Doodle, and it's a full name. It's Doodle, and then the part of the name is DOWD. Go to them, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But there's another one that kind of fits into that same category. Something that really surprised me was the melting trope. Now, we all know that sometimes in stories, depending on the situation, that a character will end up melting into a puddle. Either it's a weakness to where if they get hit by something, they end up melting into a puddle or goo. Or on the other side of things, before we get that, or sometimes melting down into a puddle or something like that, kind of, like I say, plays into the category of, like I say, the fusion merging trope, because basically it allows the two characters that melt down sometimes, because sometimes they have to do it simultaneously, or one has to do it, they melt down, and by one melting and all that, or both of them melting down, they come together and then reform into a new being. And that has happened before. But then on the other hand, you got the lustful melt category for the melting trope. And basically this is where a male, or a majority of the time, as TVtropes has put it, a female character always ends up melting into a puddle of goo, at the sight of an attractive male. And sometimes, like I say, with the male, it's sometimes at the sight of an attractive female. And like I've said before, there's so many opportunities for this trope, this lustful melt trope, to be seen. In fact, after I talked about it in length in a text and in like a 4-part video or something like that, there have been actually people that have found more from classic cartoons, from cartoons that have been seen mostly in the UK and here in the US, to cartoons back in the 90s, and probably more so that we don't know of. But this lustful melt trope has been a very popular one since about the 1940s, if not longer. And it's used to visually show how, like I say, a male, or a majority of the time a female, feels around the attractiveness of the other gender. And you're probably asking, well, what does this all have in common, Brian? Well, from the imprinting, the absorption, the fusion merging, the melting tropes, and any of the subcategories, what they have in common is these are the most popular tropes in all of media. That's the truth. In all of media, and mostly in all of anime and Western animation. That's why I've talked about them. That's why people like me are fans of them, because they are the most popular tropes ever used. They're the most used, just checking something there, they are the most used in anime. They are the most used in Western animation. They are the most used at times in comic books, fan fiction, fan art, you name it, fan web comics. You name it, they are the most popular out there, which is why a lot of people are fans of them. They are. And don't be surprised if you see more fans pop up. Don't be surprised if you see more people add stuff to TVtropes for like categories like the lustful melt gag or the absorption trope, because I think there's one on that, or the fusion merging trope. Don't be surprised if people add more, because they will. And don't be surprised if there's an imprinting trope. I'll try to find one if there is. Or someone makes one. Because, like I said, these are the most popular tropes ever used in all of media, mostly, from my observation and in my opinion, in anime, Western animation, comic books, fan art, and fan fiction. And that's the truth. So, but that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. You guys let me know what you think. Do you agree with what I have to say on it? Let me know down below. I'll talk to you.